Oh, sorry. Namaskar. Welcome everyone. I am Ravi Gupta. I am an editor-in-chief of a magazine called Digital Learning and CEO and founder of Elets Technomedia Private Limited. And we are on the fourth day of the World Education Summit. Morning to you all. And we are here with Dr. Akhtar Badshah. Uh, he is an distinguished practitioner and associate of teaching faculty at University of Washington and founder of Catalytic Innovators Group. Welcome, Akhtar. Thanks for joining all the way from Seattle. It's a great honor and pleasure to have you with us. And all the audience who are watching us live on our 3D platform of the World Education Summit, welcome you all. And Akhtar, let me say hi and namaste to you so that we are on the same audio page. Am I audible? Everything okay?
Yes, Ravi, thank you very much, and namaste. And I'm so great to be at the World Education Summit. This is such a phenomenal effort that you've been running for 17 years now, and this is the first year that it is just online. I've had the privilege of participating in previous education summits live in Delhi. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share a few thoughts of mine in this important occasion.
Great. Welcome, Akhtar. And let me inform the audience that the topic of this chat with Akhtar is purpose mindset, how companies can create purpose and profit. Now, many of you would be thinking that here we are talking about World Education Summit and how does this topic fit in. So let me just put up a context here that many of the people in the education sector, especially in India, now right now are in the private sector. There are a whole chain of private higher education ecosystem, private universities, private engineering colleges, and private schools, which dominate the Indian or South Asian education ecosystem. And many of these entities who are running these institutions are part of larger companies, larger conglomerates who are running several companies and also having an education entity as a part of the business. And education is a social sector. Traditionally, it is considered a sector with a social angle, and there is another important angle of industry academia interaction where industry and academics collaborate with each other. So if we think about this topic about purpose mindset, it gives a new dimension to the overall corporate sector and the education sector. So I will straight away go to Akhtar now and ask him that first of all, since you are teaching at University of Washington, briefly you teach and what all are areas of your focus in your career in the past, and your association with India and your association with Microsoft. If you can give that context, then we move forward in this discussion.
Ravi, thank you very much. Once again, I'm born and brought up in India, studied architecture in Ahmedabad, was lucky enough to be admitted to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology to study architecture, completed my PhD there, taught at MIT for 10 years, and then moved into the nonprofit sector, mostly focused on cities, mega cities, large cities. In India at that time was Delhi, Calcutta, Mumbai. Now, of course, you've got Chennai and Bangalore and Hyderabad and Ahmedabad. all becoming major cities. And then from there, I started a nonprofit organization called Digital Partners Foundation, which is where Ravi and I first met, where Ravi came and spoke at my conference in Baramati in 2001 that I had put together. And from there, I became the head of Microsoft's corporate philanthropy group, which is really where the focus of my book is all about discovering the purpose mindset. And now I teach at the University of Washington, both at the business school, where I focus on global business strategies, how companies make decisions to expand their business, and at the Evans School for Public Policy and Governance, where I talk about social entrepreneurship and new models of funding the social sector. So I've got a pretty eclectic background. I have published several books. My first book was on cities called Our Urban Future. My second book was on technology, which was called Technology at the Margins. And the third one is now looking at a much wider space and looking at how we as individuals develop our purpose and the role companies play as providing that foundation, that space for employees to discover their purpose.
Sure. Sorry, Akhtar, I had some connectivity issues. So, Akhtar, if you can talk about what inspired you to write this book, which we are talking about today, and what were the regions which led you to write this book, Akhtar? Yeah.
So when we when we are in the business world, we are generally driven by growth mindset. Professor Carol Dweck at Stanford University wrote this seminal book called The Growth Mindset, which actually looks at how individuals should be continuous learners, focus on how they are able to grow and develop themselves, and in doing so, develop the company. But what I also found is that companies are not just an institution. They're made up of individuals and people. And people are driven by multiple motivations. And one of them is purpose. What is the purpose of the work that they do? What does the company stand for in addition to providing the product or the service? And if companies can find ways by which they can ignite and cultivate purpose for employees, employees also become much more productive, but they are also extending the good for society at large. So I wrote this book because of my 10 years at Microsoft, where I ran Microsoft's corporate philanthropy. I saw this company, which is very well known, Microsoft, in the technology world, but has also created this unique engine where thousands of employees have gone all over the world to make social change. And that became the motivating factor that I should tell the story, and in telling the story, inspire others, everyday individuals, all of us, as to how we can continue to contribute to our community, and in doing so, we can actually make the world a better place.
Akhtar, I remember the year 2003, and that was in Baramati in Maharashtra, India, that you launched a initiative of rural connectivity and digital divide issues, and we had a big conference, and you had called several innovators from all over the world to discuss these issues about bridging the rural digital divide, and looking at how do we bring the digital benefits to the poor. Now, like after we look back, like after like 17 years, we see it as a much ahead of time that was happening. And you were working with the corporates like Microsoft in a big way, and involving many other companies in this unique mission of bringing that digital connectivity and digital benefits to the rural India. So how was the response of the corporate sector at that time, and how it has evolved over the years, how it has like changed, if you can talk about that?
So, so first of all, when we started, Ravi, people were looking at us and saying, log ke paas roti nahi hai, kapde nahi hai, makan nahi hai, and you're asking them to actually, connect to the internet. Of course, at that time, so many of us were looking at it and not looking at this as a way to just give them access to the internet. But it was more from the perspective that by giving them this opportunity, they will be able to enter into the modern workforce. Of course, when you fast forward today, Aadhaar card, India has actually done a phenomenal job of getting 800 million people into a digitized identity system where everything is based on that digital identity. Today, government services are digital, payment systems are digital, phone and WhatsApp is no longer something that is alien. And this has all come about because in India, government policies allowed for companies to see that people, if they used it, they would benefit. And therefore, it became a commercial entity, right? I mean, with Geo, what Reliance is doing and what several companies did, they've all opened up this opportunity where people are now being able to do, even beauty salons have gone online, right? You've got household work is being communicated and connected through an online platform. We're doing our shopping online. So companies have always played a role in this. And what we saw, what was initially was seen more as a government and philanthropic service, has become now primarily driven by the corporate sector. Of course, the challenge is that we still need the nonprofit sector, the social sector that acts as the intermediary between the technology and the use of the technology. And I think that will continue to be, and that will actually increase as we go into AI and machine learning and other kinds of technology, where even most of us who know how to use the computer don't know anything about AI and machine learning and any of these things. So the role of the social sector will continue to play. And I think companies and governments need to recognize that, so that they are providing support. So the benefits of artificial intelligence, which is actually trying to figure out how farming can improve, is not just remained in the research labs, but actually gets down to the farmers who want to use that information to look at what crops to plant and what's the weather system. So I think that's really the opportunity. India is just doing an amazing job in this space.
So, Akhtar, if you can talk about this culture of giving at Microsoft, that how it evolved, what were the initial thoughts of when this process of engaging or working with the underserved communities started, then what were the initial thoughts and how it evolved over the decade when you were there?
So, I think, it was fortunate that Bill Gates came from a family where a father and mother were very involved in the community. We have several in India today, right? Where families are generally going and doing service with the poor, helping out, feeding people, giving them clothes. That's what the parents were doing. And Bill grew up as part of that culture. When he launched the company, his mind was totally focused on the business. I've created a company, I've got to run the company, I've got to feed the employees, and I've got to make profit. Mother, Mary Gates, kept insisting for Bill to start something where employees could give back and donate money to the community. And in 1983, he got persuaded by his mother to start a very small program where employees could donate their money through their payroll. So it was a payroll deduction program. So they could basically say $10 every month or $20 every month will go to United Way in Seattle, and that money automatically got cut from the paycheck, and the company sent that money. Now, it could have remained that small had other people not come and taken the initiative to grow. The mother is not involved in the company. She just got this launched. Bill was still focused on the business. And Bill Newcomb joins the company in 1985 as the chief legal officer. And he takes upon himself to actually create the first community affairs program, which was a philanthropic program. And when I asked him why did he do that, he said that, look, here are these 18, 20, 25-year-old hard-working individuals working day and night creating software to change the world. They've come from all over the country. They're coming from all over the world. Eventually, they will establish roots in the Seattle community. And there has to be a way for them to get to know the community. What is happening in the community? What are the needs of the community? They will get married here. They will have kids here. Their kids will go to school here. They will use these services. So he persuaded Bill and John Shirley, the president of the company at that time, to create this program where the company would match employees' donation to any nonprofit organization of their choice going through United Way up to $1,000. Then it increased to $10,000. When I came in, we increased it to $12,000. Then we increased it to $15,000. And as the company grew, it became not just here is a program, but we actually created events. It was like a mela. In October, the month, it's really like a mela. Everybody gets together and decides what they want to support, who they want to support. Senior executives get involved. There were competitions, there were prizes, and all sorts of things. And that just kept motivating people to do more and more. And what it did is, besides the money, it actually gave people the opportunity to become involved and engaged in the community. In my interviews with Bill, he said that first couple of years, the employees just gave to their universities, their alma mater. I'd come from MIT. It's easy to write a check because they're constantly asking you for money to the alumni. So you write a check and you're done. You don't know who else to give to. As they became more and more engaged in the community, people then took on different causes, whether it was environment, whether it was, Planned Parenthood, or social justice, or hunger, or schools where the kids were going to. So this moment that Mary Gates started over 37 years has become a movement. 1983, $17,000 got raised. 2019, $212 million got raised. $220 million got raised. So you see this growth. And of course, the company has also become much larger and company has prospered. But still, the ability that you created this space for employees to collect and participate and engage, that's actually what made this a program. And it was not just something that you were forced to do.
So, Akhtar, this kind of a success story of giving, which happened in like Microsoft, did it have any ripple effects across other corporates or any similar initiatives which people got inspired?
So I mean, look, GE was the first company that actually started this in 1956. And there were many companies that have actually done this, right? So Microsoft was new in the 1980s to do this. But it was one of the few technology companies that did it in a way where it was not just something nice to have, but it was something that became part of the DNA of the company. And so much so, when the India office was opened and the Hyderabad office got set up, who was the head of the office then, and Ravi Venkatesan, who came in as the chairman of Microsoft India, created their own program for India. Because this was just a US based program. It was seen, you know, corporate philanthropy was never really in other parts of the world, right? So India became, and because Srini had worked in the US, he'd been part of the culture. He came in and said, this is one way I will create the culture for the company in India. And I need to extend it. In India, they set it up with 250,000 rupees match. Started off with just six. I told them, don't start this broad program, just pick six nonprofits and let's support them. And then every year we'll continue to add. And now it's become a much bigger program where the employees are volunteering, employees are giving their time, employees are using technology to provide solutions, whether they're developing these applications for farmers or whether they're developing, working with the eye hospital and developing, new technologies there, or learning programs, or working with cooperatives, handloom workers, and using technology to create better entrepreneurs and sell their goods. So now it's become a much larger program than just a US based effort.
Akhtar, any examples or initiatives which stand out and which you fondly remember personally, like which have a good impact on the social ecosystem?
So I'll just give you two examples. One, Rajiv and Arpita Agarwal. Rajiv came from a small village in UP. Because of his acumen and luck, he managed to get into IIT Kharagpur. Sat for the exams, did the training first, sat for the exams, got into IIT Kharagpur, graduated from there, came to the US to do his master's, got his MBA at the University of Michigan, and landed up at Microsoft. His wife also worked at Microsoft, and they both, having come from modest backgrounds, at that time they were earning good money and saying that, we need to help back. And mother, still living in the small town, school principal. So the first things they started doing was, we'll help build the school, we'll support the school, put some resources in the school. And they use the match constantly to do that. When they started their own company, MAQ Software, and like with a lot of companies that get started in the US, their back end work is in India because they've got talent there. And Rajiv set up his offices in Mumbai and Hyderabad and a couple of other places. And at the same time that we were actually focused on the digital divide and Baramati and all of that, he was starting a program in his office to teach kids in the surrounding neighborhood to use technology, to use the computer, because he said, my office is shut in the evening, the computers are there, I'll just bring them in, I'll get some employees to volunteer time and teach them. And he got these ideas from us, because we were talking to him about Baramati and we were talking to, he said, yeah, main shuru kar deta hu. Let me just start it and see what happens. And from that, he is now scaled where he's set up multiple digital learning centers in India, created new schools with technology, and also created work with the X Prize to create language apps in multiple languages. So you can see that even people coming out of India, where the traditional ways of US giving is not there, people, this rubbed off on them. And then they took the same approach and brought it back to India, creating tremendous amount of benefits. So just one example. Ravi Venkatesan, of course, after he left Microsoft, started, Social Venture Partners India, and is now doing this whole global entrepreneurship program where he's supporting, young people to become entrepreneurs. So these efforts of people learning from what the company was doing and then taking it outside into the community and getting other people inspired to do that. And now SVP India is probably one of the largest social venture partner groups around the world, with so many of the technology leaders involved in it. So that's now rubbing off. And they are now bringing into their own companies how to think differently.
Excellent examples, Akhtar. I think this idea has inspired a whole set of leaders and many institutions globally to look at. So, if you can highlight this, some of the other companies who have had a similar program like Microsoft, and how it has impacted the company itself, like how this culture of giving actually helps the company.
So let's just take a look at what Google has done, right? With the Google, has given people time off to work on any project that they want to impact society. And out of that, so many different new initiatives have come about that have actually had impact on the community. Intel has a fairly good, successful program, and they basically did it as part of their regular. Intel has this program where managers take their team out every quarter. It's called the quarterly. And they basically said one of these quarterlies has to be focused on helping the community. So you do an activity where you're going out and helping the community. So that becomes part of the culture. Cisco has done that with the Cisco Academy and so many other programs that Cisco has done. Microsoft's impact has been enormous. I mean, and for each one of them, what it does is Aaron Hurst, who wrote the book, The Purpose Economy, surveyed people in the workforce all over the country. And he basically found that people fall into three categories. People that are driven by purpose, which is they just want to be working on a project that is satisfying to them. Others who are driven by money, and the third are driven by status. Now, this is not a value judgment that purpose is good, money is not good, status is not good. It is the way it is. I mean, when Rajiv and Soma and others, so many of the Indians that I've covered in my book, for the first several years, they said, look, we had student loans to pay, we had to feed, we had to send money back home, we had to pay off loans. We were just focused on earning. But as they matured, this giving started rubbing off onto them. And purpose then became the secondary driver. So if companies provide these opportunities, now people who are also driven by money or status can have purpose as the secondary driver. And that then makes the company much better, because people are much more enthused about working for the company. They feel that the company has a higher purpose, and the company is not burning them out. It is giving them the opportunity to renew their energy. Purpose is the source of renewable energy. Whether an organization is going to be a healing organization or an organization that takes. Raj Sisodia, who's a professor in Boston, has written a book called The Healing Organization. And he talks about how companies need to heal, not just take. And purpose is one way in which you can create an environment where people are coming together for a higher cause than just work. But in doing so, become much more excited about the company that they're working for.
Excellent, excellent inputs and thoughts, Akhtar. If you can talk about, like, you have seen the uh, uh, Microsoft as an organization for a long time. So how did this organization culture change from the different CEOs, from Bill to Steve Ballmer and then Satya? So if you can talk about that evolution.
Yeah, so obviously with Bill, it was really in that formative phase, right? We've got to create the company. Everybody was super hardworking. They were just hyper competitive, right? Win at all costs, create the best technology, and take it out into the world. Yet at that same time, that month of October, people switched and became all community focused. Barber comes in at a time where the company, and that's the time when I joined, the company hits this somewhat pause in the technology innovation, but company grows dramatically in its size. In 10 years that Barber was there, the company grew significantly in terms of its revenue, profitability, number of people it was employing. And that created a whole different way in which the company was functioning. More systems got put in place because the company was growing so dramatically. And so there was a certain amount of bureaucracy that came in, right? And with bureaucracy, you get a little bit of inertia. And we also found that what was that fun, competitive spirit in giving was actually becoming where employees were now feeling forced. So we had to dial back. We had to actually shift the approach of how to go back and make it fun. And every year that we were there, the company's giving has always increased every year. Whether the economy was doing good or the economy was doing bad, or the company was doing good or the company was doing bad, employees' generosity never stopped. And that's because even Balmer was willing to allow us to put in new programs, knowing full well it will cost the company money. Now, Satya comes in with a very different mindset. And his mindset is all about empathy and all about purpose. And he shifts the company's culture in including the giving, where my colleagues who people who are now running it have been able to modify and add new programs into this. So I'll give you one example. When we first, till I came in, there was no volunteer time given for employees to go volunteer. So it was, you want to volunteer, you volunteer, we don't care. When I came in, we actually said, we care that you volunteer, and we will match your time with money. You volunteer and you submit your time, we will verify it with the nonprofit organization, and then we will send that nonprofit organization a check. And you had to volunteer for a minimum of 10 hours. Now you can volunteer for 5 minutes and your time will be counted. And that's because technology allows you to now volunteer from home. You don't have to, well, now anyways, we physically can't go and volunteer for anything this year. But even the technology improved where people could do micro volunteering. So micro volunteering was introduced. The payment is actually increased to $25 per hour. So all of these things were introduced. We introduced when new employees came in, we gave them $50. We gave them $50 cash and said, here's, donate to any nonprofit organization you want to just build them that muscle so that they could come in. So every CEO allowed us to do different things to the company, which has, and even Satya, when I interviewed him for the book, I mean, basically he says that the employee giving program is like having coffee. You wake up every morning and you have coffee, and the employee giving program is, it's something that you just wake up and do. It's just part of the company culture. It is a habit. And forming that habit with fun is really what then creates purpose. You're on mute.
Sorry, Akhtar, sorry. Yeah. So, Akhtar, if you can also highlight that in the context of India and Indian companies, since our large part of the audience today is India. So, like, how do you see that Indian companies can get inspired from these examples, like you mentioned about Microsoft and Google? You have already mentioned that in India, like some of the corporates like Birla or Tata have a tradition of a lot of socially driven organizations. But how to take it to a much larger ecosystem?
So the way I see it is that I don't see this as a philanthropic effort. Its outcome is philanthropic. But this is really, even the Microsoft program is run, it is a joint effort between HR and philanthropies. This is seen as an employee benefit. So think of this as building the capacity of employees to do well. It's another way of how you think about training an employee. You can send them for a course, or you can actually create opportunities where different people from different parts of the company, status, hierarchy, whether it's a senior VP or the junior most employee, can all come together and work on something together. That is going to lead to the community good. So volunteer activities do that. It breaks down that barrier. And by breaking down that barrier, it now also provides that young employee a connection to the manager or somebody else in the company, and then now provides them a pathway for mentorship, pathway for growth, And these are all outcomes that are for company benefit, but it is also benefiting the community. So you have to kind of not see this as a one-way street. It is actually central to the growth of the company. So any company, large or small, can do this. In today's time in COVID, so many companies, even in India, are stepping up and saying, what can we do to support people that are not getting enough food or are not getting enough revenue? And how can our employees step up, especially those that still have a job and are still functioning and are able to work from home? So it's that ability for companies to not just do it when there is an emergency. And in India, there is an outpouring of support when we had the tsunami, or when we have the floods, or when we have the earthquake, or when we have COVID. I'm saying create programs where that same level of support is constantly happening, not necessarily at that same scale, but it's constantly happening because that builds the culture and the DNA of the company. And in doing so, it builds purpose in individuals, because companies are made up of individuals. And if employees have purpose, then the company has purpose.
Sure. Excellent points. And Akhtar, one of the points which you have highlighted in this book is about companies having three mindsets: a fixed one, a growth one, and a purpose one. So if you can like elaborate on this aspect and how it is important to differentiate these ways of thinking.
Absolutely. So, fixed mindset is, where people believe they know it all, they are the experts, and that's what they're going to focus on. And there are some people who do that, right? You have a PhD, I have a PhD. We can basically look at it and say, no, we are an expert in our subject, and that's all we'll do. We'll not worry about anything else. And failure is not an option. Or you go into the growth mindset with Professor Carol Dweck created at Stanford, where she is saying that we need to be continuous learners, that we are continuously growing, we're continuously improving. Failure is just a stepping stone, it's a learning opportunity, and we are at all times willing to learn new things. But what growth mindset does is that it's for the self and it's for the company. I am proposing that we actually look at purpose and develop a purpose mindset. So these are just extensions, right? You're moving from fixed to growth to purpose. And purpose, I identify 5 principles. One is focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. We are generally always told to focus on our weakness and improve it. Yes, you have to do that. But if most of us focused on our strengths, we would first of all enjoy doing what we want to do because we are doing what we like doing and it's our strength, but we are also doing it better. And in the book, I give examples of how working from strengths actually benefits society more. Second, there is always going to be scarcity of resources, but our frame of how we look at the world should be with abundance. And even small resources can lead to abundance. Ravi, in 2003, you were running around trying to figure out how you're going to create this conference with no resources. Today, you are a leader in this space. Elets is a leader in this space. You've created a magazine that has survived for 17 years. You started off with no resource. but you just kept working and working and working. And that's the abundance mindset. And you did that because you believed that this would have a major impact on society, not just you or not just the company. Third, focus on not being efficient, but how effective you're going to be. Companies, you want people to be efficient. I want you to be effective, and effective for the right reasons. Don't focus on organizations, create movements. Ideas create movements. For the education audience, we always tell our kids, what do you want to be? Instead, ask them, who do you want to serve? By picking who you want to serve, you're actually then going to go into a space, not because you want to become a doctor, but doctor is just a means by which you are actually serving patients. You could just be a nurse and serve patients. You can be a pharmacist and serve patients. You can be a robotics engineer and serve patients. So serving, how do you think about a movement? So which allows you to go from creating organizations into creating movements. And then fifth, how do we move ourselves from being generous to being empathetic and being compassionate? And on that journey, you go from being focused on yourself to being focused on the community. So you go from the me to the we. And that we in today's time is critical because none of us are going to survive COVID on our own. We have to be collective. And that's where the last point I make is we need to create bridging networks where different groups of people are able to bridge over, and purpose and companies are this neutral space where different ideas, different thoughts, different groups, Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, can come together around a common cause. And that creates bridging networks versus bonding networks where we otherwise are bonding to people that we know or of our type. And that's the value of how I think of moving from fix to growth to purpose.
Fantastic thoughts, amazing. And I think we are towards the end of the program. Let me ask you that you have been in USA for a long time, and you have started your journey from India. So they say a large community of Indians who are like sitting in the US or Europe, and are there wage that the skills, the knowledge those Indians have acquired in the foreign land reach out to the Indian community? Like India still needs a lot of development to happen. So are you looking at working on those issues again? You have worked on it earlier, starting from Baramati. So are you looking at connecting to Boston to Baramati again, like somehow?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I mean, one of the, at Microsoft had a very different forum, right? I could travel all over the world, and I traveled everywhere, and I had resources to bring and invest, which Microsoft is still doing in India. Now I have a slightly different platform, which is an educational platform. And I think the important part is that so many of us who have actually come from India today are also in incredibly prominent positions in faculties. whether it's at Harvard, MIT, University of Washington, Stanford, just about every business school now has a dean from an Indian origin, including my dean, Sandeep Krishnamurthy, at the University of Washington. Right, so we are obviously finding ways in which we are not only recruiting students from India, connecting to them, partnering with faculty, bringing resources back. This whole point of participating in the book and writing the book is to inspire young people and to inspire companies and to inspire everybody that look, there is a way in which each one of us can contribute. And again, like with any large community, there are active members that are contributing, like Indiaspora and the America India Foundation and others that have actually done an enormous job. The Indus entrepreneurs that have constantly created mechanisms to connect India and US and other parts of the world together. And then there are others who are happy in their own community. And again, we hope that this changes. I hope that, Ravi, you will share the link for my book so
Yes.
that the participants can actually get it. But it's on Amazon in India. You can order it on Amazon. I hope you all will read it. But more importantly, share your thoughts with me as to what are you doing to extend the common good? How are you investing back into society? These are all ways in which I can take examples and start sharing through my platform, because we want to create a community of purpose driven leaders so that we can continue to create a much better world than what we have today.
Sure. Akhtar, may I request you to just show the cover of the book on the screen so that
Here it is. I don't know whether you can see it or not.
yeah, it's a yeah, we can like say it here. Yeah, thank you. So this book is also available in India, Akhtar.
Yeah, it's available in India. It's on Amazon India. You can just, order it online. It is available in Kindle. It is available in audio. It is available in hard copy. So people have different ways in which they want to consume information. Some want to do it on their mobile devices. Others want a physical copy, and some want to do it because they're going out on a walk or out in a car and want to listen to the book. So it's available on all three.
Fantastic. And Akhtar, if you can mention about like some of the in the last question, I think I will ask you is that what inspired you to write this? Why it was important? Yes, it's like shared here. Yes, perfect. So is the book is here. It's called Purpose Mindset by Akhtar Badshah. It's like available online. So the last question is that what was the purpose you had in mind when you were thinking about writing this?
So, I mean, one of the things that, there are so many people who have always asked me, how did I go from being an architect to a social innovator to a philanthropist and back into an educator? And I felt that this was one way to be able to share with people that don't look at each and every one of us should wake up every single day to make a difference in the world and not just stand still. Otherwise, we wasted life. I wanted to write this book to inspire everybody, whoever you are. Help your maid, help the kid next door, read to them, talk to them, treat every human as that same individual, like you would want to be treated. So that's what inspired me to write this book, was not to be focused on the technology side or on the city side, which I've done, but to go much broader and look at the humanity of people. And then through the lens of Microsoft and some of the alumni that I have interviewed and the stories that I tell, I want the readers to resonate with somebody and say, this is what I can also become. This is how I can also serve. And how can we all be in the service of others? And in doing so, you are actually serving yourself. You're giving joy to yourself. You're actually giving purpose to yourself. So that's why I wanted to write this book.
Amazing, and very inspiring, actually, Akhtar. Thanks for this amazing conversation, and I think the whole audience would have loved it. And uh, I request each and everyone here who's like watching us to read this book, and the uh, link will be shared with you on the chat by our team, so you can like see it there and order it online. And Akhtar, so many thanks for joining us for this session. Amazing and inspiring as always, Akhtar. So thank you so much for your presence.
Thank you very much, everybody. Namaskar. And Ravi, as always, you're also one of the persons that actually emulates purpose in the work that you do. So it is always great having a conversation with you. Thank you very much.